every time a guy's punching you, you can't breathe. So every time a guy's punching you, you're tightening up, you're constricting your body when he's punching your body, and you're cutting back on the amount of oxygen you get. That's like one of the strategies that Nick Diaz has always used in his career. He'll hit a guy 150 times at like 50%. He just gets in front of your face and starts throwing punches, and people are like, oh, those don't even hurt. First of all, yes, they do. Yes, they do. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Let him punch you 50%. It might not knock you dead, but it fucking hurts, and he hits you with 4 of those. It's probably almost as good as one full blast punch. He's going to hit you with a bunch of them, and you're not going to be able to breathe. You're going to be tightening up constantly.
Toe-to-toe with Paul Daly, Robbie Lawler knocked both out.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, those are just 2 of the examples of what he's able to do. And, you know, he has good accuracy. I mean, he'll knock him out. He's pretty pinpoint when he goes and hits a guy in the chin right when they think it's not hurting, and then he does drop him. And it's a suffocating style because I feel, and I don't know if there's science to back this up, I haven't researched it, but when you're exhausted, you're easier to get knocked out.
Oh, for sure.
You can't tense up as much when you and roll with the punches as much. You end up taking it square, and it rocks the jaw, crushes the nerves, and you're out.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And, you know, those fights, man, goddamn, especially the Paul Daly fight.
Oh.
His chin is another thing. I mean, you can't teach that. You can't teach the ability to absorb punishment that he has. I mean, it's just, he's so tough.
And the psychology, too. You know, to walk into an octagon in front of all these people. Everybody you know and care about in the world is going to watch that fight, and you got to face him afterwards. And your decision, I mean, you talk about the fight or flight, and there's still fighters who, even though they're professional fighters and they're way tougher than your normal populace, you know, there's levels, many subtle levels once you get to the highest level. Nick Diaz doesn't care. He's going to go toe-to-toe with you. Doesn't matter who it is. You know, Anderson Silva, he's going to go toe-to-toe with him, and there's no issues there. Even though he hasn't been in the octagon in a long time, there's something psychologically in that man where, hey, you know what? If you tell me you're going to draw a line and fight, then I'm there. And he'll admit he doesn't even like fighting.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy.
It's tough.
Well, he wants that money. You know, I mean, he made a lot of money in the George St. Pierre fight and then took a long time off, and now he's coming back and fighting Anderson Silva on Anderson's comeback fight, which is, man, what a lot of questions in that fight, right? That's fight. It's one big. That should be the poster for that fucking fight. Just a question mark. Who the fuck knows what's going to happen in that fight?
Yeah, and most people, you know, will look at it and say, well, you know, Diaz is going to come out and he's going to want to box, and Anderson just has so many weapons on the feet, but how does he throw those weapons? And, you know, we haven't seen the Diaz brothers do too many checking leg kicks yet. You know, certainly Nate didn't do it against Rafael dos Anjos. But if Nick Diaz comes out there and he checks a few leg kicks for Anderson, does that slow down the attack? You know, does he hit the same area again? Does he check that? Who knows? I mean, you know, if I have to bet money, you know, I'm going to put it on the all-time great Anderson Silva, but I'm not quite ready to count out Nick Diaz out of this fight just yet.
I'm not counting him out at all. And Anderson Silva, for folks who don't know what we're talking about, is the greatest of all time. Broke his leg in his last fight, threw a kick. Chris Weidman lifted up his knee. Anderson caught him in the top part of the shin, which is a brutal spot to get checked, and Anderson's leg snapped like a twig. It was really, I've only seen it happen twice live. Corey Hill, a long time ago, who looked like a guy who would break. I mean, Corey was really tall for the weight class. Was he fighting 155?
155. That was a disgusting cut.
Oh, he was really, 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 really thin. And, I mean, it probably takes something out of your bones, too. I mean, it takes something out of your organs for sure. Super bad for your kidneys. And these guys are dehydrating themselves like that. But Corey breaking his leg was very shocking, but there was something about watching Anderson break his leg where you just know, like, Anderson is an all-time great, the all-time great, the most spectacular performer we've ever seen in the UFC, and his leg just snapped.
The best martial artist, in my opinion, in the history of martial arts. I mean, when you look at and you want to talk about, you know, Benny the Jet, Bill Superfoot Wallace, and you have Bruce Lee, and you had all the, you know, and you can go way back in history.
Path pavers, for sure.
Absolutely. You've got to then look at Anderson Silva and how he was able to bring to the most complete fighting style known to man, the artistry he brought to it, the many different ways he won, from different kicks to submissions. I mean, he can do it all. I still think the greatest fighter to ever go in the octagon is John Jones, though. I don't think anybody has ever beat the level of competition he's beaten by the margins that he's done so. I mean, drops Machida unconscious to the floor.
Yeah, I mean, the way he's done it, he submitted Vitor after he got his arm fucked up in that arm bar and refused to tap.
Yep.
You know, I mean, fought Gustafsson and from all indications, barely fucking trained for that fight and still gutted it out in those final rounds and won.
It's funny you bring that. I mean, that's what I've heard as well. I don't know if they're true, but that's certainly the rumblings. You know, there was some stuff taken lightly. He just boxed
very
for it.
rare when you hear those rumblings and they're not true. I mean, when was the last time you heard a guy barely trained? You're like, what the fuck are you talking about? The guy was doing 2-a-days. He was running 5 miles. He was eating nothing but the most wholesome foods. That's not what I heard. I heard he was doing the exact opposite. He was eating some very unwholesome foods.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when he fought Shogun for the title, it was one of the worst beatings I've seen inside the octagon.
He threw a fucking flying knee in his opening move. He's the youngest guy to ever fight for the UFC title, and he throws not the youngest guy to ever fight for a title. I believe that was John Alessio. I think John Alessio was 20 when he fought Pat Miletich way back in the day. But
youngest guy to win it. Youngest guy to win champion.
Throws a fucking flying knee on Shogun and cracks him right in the chin. I mean,
just ridiculous stuff that he threw. I mean, what did he try flying armbar on Cormier?
I got a theory about that shit, man. My theory is that guys who grow up with brothers that beat the fuck out of them are just on a completely different level. Because Weidman grew up with a brother that beat the fuck out of him. Matt Hughes and his brother beat the fuck out of each other. John Jones had 2 super athlete brothers. I mean, he's got 2 brothers that are fucking NFL studs. And, you know, his brother Arthur, by all indications, kicks John's ass when they work out together.
Yeah, and he kicked John's ass growing up plenty. I mean, he was a state champion wrestler, I believe. Yeah, huge guy, too.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah, he's 300 plus. And when you grow up like that, I think you just have a level of I think also your body develops stronger. You know, I mean, there's something about tangling with a brother your whole life. I mean, you're in competition from the time you're a baby. You're always going to war.
And coupled with that, I have not seen in a guy like John the belief. You know, John will, he'll watch a movie about like chi or something, and I'm making this up obviously, and he'll think it truly exists in him. So he meditates near a waterfall the day of his fight. Always, they got to find water. He's got to go to water, and he sits there and he'll meditate and he focuses on it. Most guys would point to that and say that is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. They try and make fun of somebody for it. John doesn't care. John, being in the locker room with him for several fights on the same card, he's back there as this young kid who has very few life experiences. So calm. Never once does the thought of him losing run through his mind. I mean, when he went out and fought Vladimir Matyushenko, I fought on that card. And John's jiu-jitsu, I had submitted him several times in that training camp. He goes out there against Vladdy, and the game plan was to strike with him because Vladdy was such a good wrestler and so good on the ground, and John wasn't good on the ground. Immediately takes Vladimir down, passes his guard, elbows him into oblivion, the fight's over. I didn't know that John even knew how to pass the guard at that point. I'm serious. You don't do beginners jiu-jitsu classes at Greg Jackson's gym. He'll do it in like private sessions with them, But John, it just, I remember submitting him several times one week, and then 2 weeks later, we're in Denver, Colorado for that camp, and he catches me in a submission. I look at Greg, I go, did he learn jiu-jitsu in 2 weeks? It's just always been that way. The only other guy that I hear that's like that, to that extreme, to where every move they learn, they could use it instantly, is Weidman.
Really?
When I talk to guys, and I go into Henzo's frequently for the nonprofit I run, there's a lot of guys up in Wall Street who have been very generous and are very avid for veterans getting jobs, and they'll always meet me at Henzo's, and they train there. And the guys there will talk about it, like, you sit there in these classes, and it takes me thousands of reps to get this move to work on high-level competition. Weidman learns it, drills it once, and then submits everybody in the class with it. He's just that much of an animal.
Yeah, well, he's a fucking when you get a stud wrestler that picks up jiu-jitsu, what a fucking horrific combination that is.
Especially for guys like me. I mean, it absolutely.
For anybody, man.
Yeah.
Habib Nurmagomedov is the scariest guy at 155 next to Pettis, in my opinion. I can't wait for him to get healthy. I mean, I'm looking forward to Dos Anjos fighting Pettis because I think stylistically it's a very intriguing fight. But then you watch what Nurmagomedov did for Dos Anjos. He just fucking shut him. I watched that fight again the other day. He just ragdolled him.
Everybody. He does it to everybody.
And he's not you look at him, he doesn't look like Tyron Woodley. He doesn't look like, you look at Tyron Woodley, if he smashes somebody, you go, well, Jesus, look at the guy.
You expect it.
Yeah. I mean, look at the guy. But you look at Nurmagomedov, he looks like an athlete, for sure. He looks like a strong guy. But the way he's fucking ragdolling people is shocking. The way he did it to Abel Trujillo. I mean, just like,
and
fucking shocking.
Abel's a stud athlete,
Yeah.
strong as hell. Nurmagomedov's his kinesthetic awareness and his leverage and technique, and then I think the real key ingredient, though, is his will.
Yeah.
Guys that have that wrestling back, they have that gear. If you don't believe someone can stop you, it's so powerful.
Yeah.
And he has that and the talent, and that's really, really scary.
Yeah, he fights like a werewolf. I mean, there's like something about him. It's like his intensity and violence is just so heightened. It's like this next level, just whatever it is. I mean, if his striking ever catches up to his grappling, Jesus fucking Christ.
Man.
I mean, and it most likely will. I mean, depending on what's the state of his knee. Because I know he hurt his knee, and then the rumors were he got it operated on and then hurt it again. Like, came back too quickly.
Really? I had seen him maybe 2 months ago. And, speaking to some of his management as well, I mean, they believe he's going to be back soon, right around, I think, the time that Pettis is going to fight Dos Anjos. So he'll be waiting in the wings, quickly. I think he's even complaining that Dos Anjos is even getting the shot.
Yeah, he is complaining that, but he's not ready to. I mean, he can't train right now.
No.
And if he does fuck his knee up, he'll probably just fucking duct tape it together and get back in there anyway.
And that's the worst thing. You don't want to ruin your career to come, take your time. And the one crazy thing is, though, because it's not a walk in the park for Pettis to beat Dos Anjos. Dos Anjos is dangerous, and Dos Anjos wrestling looked really good against Nate Diaz. But Pettis, he's a sniper. He just needs one shot. That's how scary that kid is. I mean, he can go into a fight and barely mess his hair and only hit you once.
He also has a style that's based on not like there's a style of kicking and punching that a lot of these guys do that's Muay Thai style, where there's a step and then a kick, a step and then a kick. And Pettis has got that Taekwondo thing where he's standing there and he just throws it.
Zero telegraph
with KO power.
Yep.
And it's tough to fuck with. If you watch him, like the head kick that he landed on Joe Lozon, it comes out of nowhere. The one he landed on Donald Cerrone, it comes out of nowhere. And Cerrone's a fucking excellent striker.
And he's in phenomenal. That kid naturally has incredible cardio. We would go do these sand dunes at Jackson's, at altitude. These things are 60 to 70 meter high or length sand dunes that are a steep incline to where the sand falls and you have to crawl up with all fours. He glides up those things, smokes everybody, even when he's not in premier shape. To kick him in the body and KO him, I mean, you've got a bruise deep on the. I call them soul kicks. Where you kick a dude so hard and you see that, you see the shit face, and the soul just comes sneaking right out the mouth. That's what happens. There's nothing you can do.
Those liver shots, man, they're not like anything anybody could describe unless you've been hit like that. It's this weird thing where your body just stops working,
and it sucks because you're helpless but you're conscious, so you're forced to watch the dude kick your ass while you're helpless. You can't do anything to stop it.
Especially in MMA. In boxing, at least, you go down and they count 10. Like Oscar De La Hoya versus Bernard Hopkins. I mean, it was the only time we've ever seen De La Hoya get stopped like that. But Bernard just fucking hooked him right in that liver, and you see his whole body just. It's the weirdest thing, man. And sometimes you can play it off like, you get hit and you can kind of move with it, and like a guy doesn't know. But then there's times where you get hit, like it doesn't. Crow Cop versus Heath Herring. You ever see that?
Yes.
There's a fucking photograph online. See if you can find this photo of Crow Cop's shin buried halfway into Heath Herring's body. And this is when Crow Cop was fucking Crow Cop.
Yeah.
When he was on his run towards the title. And he hit Heath Herring with this. At my house, I couldn't breathe. I was watching it at home, and I was like, like, look at that fucking kick. Oh, my God.
Dude, that's like taking your lungs, kidneys, and intestines and just, smushing them all together for a brief second. I mean, that is disgusting.
And look, his foot is pulled back, so you know it's all shin bone. And you know how goddamn hard Mirko kicks. That is the most horrific-looking body shot I've ever seen anybody take. In a photograph?
Dude, you see that in like car wrecks.
Yeah, that's exactly what it looks like. It looks like he was on a motorcycle and he crashed into a telephone pole that was on the back of a pickup truck. Just boom, his whole body just.
That puts any picture. I've got a couple pictures where I'm taking shots, and that puts everything I have to shame. I feel like a chump just looking at it.
That is the liver kick. That is the liver kick.
That's all. That's
horrific.
Your heart. It's everything.
It's everything.
Anything
Lungs,
internal, it's over.
Ribs are probably broken. probably broke some ribs. I'd like to talk to Heath about that.
Yeah.
Jesus fucking Christ.
And we saw that with Machida versus Dalloway. I mean, Dalloway has done such a fantastic job of finally, reaching his potential and showcase everything he does. And it's so hard for fighters because you want to at least go out there and showcase your skills. And similar to Pettis, but a different style. Taekwondo, now you're looking at karate, and a guy who, no telegraph, sends it right underneath the elbow of your guard at pinpoint accuracy, and the fight is over. I called that fight. It sounded like someone took a 2x4 and just smacked it off this table, and it echoed throughout the stadium.
Yeah, I watched that, and as soon as I saw the look on his face, I was like, oh, this is probably over.
Done.
Yeah, he's got that. And he hit him with his shin and his instep at the same time. I mean, instep kicks, like a lot of people think that like the foot area is like not as effective, and it's not as hard. But goddamn, it's hard enough to knock you out. I mean, it's still a goddamn bone. You can kick somebody pretty hard. The Thai style, you could deliver a bit more power, but it does take a little more time to get there.
And, something's dependent on the athlete, too. Where I kicked harder more from a Thai-style stance, but I don't have the flexibility of a guy like an Anthony Pettis.
Right.
And what are their muscle levers like, too, in their hips? And what's their fast-twitch muscle fibers like? You can pick different styles, but sometimes you get the athletes who did train the perfect styles for their body style, their genetics, and that's where you get the Anthony Pettises and the Lyoto Machidas who have the perfect genetic structure for that as well.
Well, there's also this speed that you develop when you do it your whole life that's you almost can't replicate it by starting in your 20s or your 30s and learning martial arts.
Absolutely.
Coming from a wrestling background and then learning how to kick, you're probably never going to be able to kick like Machida or like Pettis. They have this ridiculous speed. It's this weird thing that they can do to their body because their body developed doing that. I mean, they went through maturity doing that.
Yeah.
Their muscles literally grew onto their bones throwing kicks.
Yeah, I mean, lifelong martial arts. You didn't when I was still fighting in the UFC, you still had a handful of guys that were like me. I mean, I didn't even start thinking about doing this till 26. Never had a first real lesson till I was 27.
That's so crazy.
And so, I mean, now you got these guys like Rory McDonald. They grew up doing it. Your GSP was one of the first. He was a lifelong martial artist, and that's where Michael Bisping was a lifelong martial artist. And now you're getting guys that are even higher level athletes, not necessarily a GSP, but higher level athletes that are lifelong martial artists coming into this sport. And I consider wrestlers lifelong martial artists as well. When you're doing that shit since you're 5 years old, you are. To me, wrestling's a martial art. It's one of the best in the world.
Yeah, I think the most important. If you're a really good wrestler, you dictate where the fight takes place.
Absolutely.
But some wrestlers never develop that strike. It's almost like their body's not designed to strike. Like, a good example, with all due respect, is Matt Lindland, who's one of the fucking toughest guys to ever fight in MMA. He was a fantastic grappler. I think he won silver. Did he win silver in the Olympics?
Yeah.
Fucking great wrestler. I mean, the guy got a hold of you, manhandled people. But his striking was always fairly awkward on his feet. Never developed you're never going to mistake him for Anderson Silva on his feet. And it probably never wasn't available to him. I watched that Phil Davis-Lyoto Machida fight the other day. It was way closer than I thought it was. And I could see Phil winning. I mean, Phil did get takedowns and did do damage on the ground. And like you were saying, like a lot of those shots that Machida, it was a very, very, very close fight. But a lot of people were calling it one of the greatest robberies ever. But, man, I watched it again. I was like, ooh, I don't think, not so much. Yeah. I don't think it's one of the greatest robberies. It's a very fucking close fight.
And even Machida will tell you, and when I talked to him before his fight with CB Dalloway, he's had to adapt his style a little bit because he had a whole bunch of really contested decisions. His Rampage Jackson fight, his fight with Phil Davis. He was leaving a lot of fights where he felt like, okay, look, I was in total control, but he didn't, he made it confusing for the judges. And when you do that, look, judges are human too. We've talked all tonight about how flawed we are as humans, how we all make mistakes. And that happens there. Absolutely. See, you've got to do the things. He's had to get more aggressive. He can't just counterpunch. He's had to get a little bit more offensive with his style to ensure that he's going to get those decisions. Because if he doesn't get them, he can't be totally disappointed when he's got a little bit of a passive style.
Yeah, I'm glad he went down to 185. I think he should have been there all along.
Yeah,
Machida's one of those guys who would weigh in at 203, 204, didn't cut any weight.
No,
it's crazy.
And
it's
he's
crazy.
not a huge middleweight. I mean, he'll be 197, 196. When I fought at middleweight, I would show up to the venue at 207 on Tuesday, make 185 Friday, fight back at 207 on Saturday.
That's crazy.
And I was big then. Now I look at these dudes now. I mean, they're almost all like that anymore.
Well, look at Weidman. Weidman's
Huge.
enormous. He's a big fucking
Walks
guy.
at 225, 230.
Yeah. He's a big, thick guy, and he's strong as shit. And that's one of the things I think Machida realized in that fight. Like, wow, I'm not a big middleweight.
No.
When you're fighting Weidman, you unload everything but the kitchen sink, and then he waves you in afterwards. I mean, he unloaded on Weidman, and Weidman was still there.
And the fact that who thought round one, Weidman gets right in Machida's face and starts outstriking. First 3 rounds, he outstruck Machida. Now, it's not a pure kickboxing match. The threat of the takedown certainly opens up your arsenal more and limits Lyoto's. But it was still, we've never seen someone go in there and take that route towards beating Machida.
Well, he's very confident in his chin and his knockout power. And he also has a really good sense of distance.
Yeah.
That's one thing that people don't give him enough credit. They think he's just this face-forward attacking guy. No, he moves in and then he moves back and he moves in and he moves back. He's throwing feints a lot. And Ray Longo is such a good fucking striking coach, especially with wrestlers. That he really understands how to teach those guys how to fight with the constant threat of the takedown and then attack off of those opportunities.
You talk about controlling distance. I mean, when someone knocks you out with a counter elbow, how often? I mean, that is really hard to do.
Yeah.
To time an elbow on a counter strike and knock somebody out. I mean, that's understanding the range of your opponent, how far they're coming. A feel. It's a feel that not every fighter has, and Chris definitely has that. And yeah, Longo's also one of those guys technically, but he also, I think he makes his fighters feel like they're better than they should be. Like, he makes them feel like they're ready to run through that brick wall, because he's just that tough, Northeast, gritty dude. Like, hey, Ray, how do you think he's going to do against Weidman? And he told me 2 days before the fight, Brian, he's going to smoke him. He's going to run right through him. It's so funny to hear his confidence and how tough he is.
Well, he told me it was one of Weidman's earlier victories. I think after he fought Tom Lawler, I was in the cage with him, and Ray Longo goes, "He's a motherfucker. I'm telling you, this kid's a motherfucker." And another thing he said to me about Weidman, he goes, "We're all lucky he's fighting. Trust me. We're all lucky he's in the fucking cage fighting. Because if he was out there, if he didn't have an outlet, oh, Christ."
No
shit.
shit.
Because I've seen some shit with this kid in the gym.
That'd be a great Reebok. Be a great Reebok T-shirt for Weidman.
We're all lucky he's fighting.
That, or he's a motherfucker.
When you look at him, too, he's so handsome and so looks so nice. It's really going to be interesting to see what Duke Rufus does with CM Punk. Because Duke Rufus is essentially taking this guy. I read this article today where they're interviewing Duke, and he said, I'm going to build this guy up from the ground up, and he's not going to spar with anybody but me. He's like, I'm going to have him spar with me because I know that no one's going to hurt him. I'm going to have total control, but I'm going to correct all of his mistakes. And it's a great call to have a guy like Duke do that, because he is a master striker and a master instructor. And you couldn't get a better coach for MMA, for striking in MMA. I mean, I put him right up there with Dwayne and with Faraz Zahabi and all the Matt Hume, all the great guys.
Yep.
But I think that a guy like that is like an interesting sort of a test ground. I mean, first of all, for the public's just for credibility. I mean, you're talking about a guy who has no amateur wrestling bouts, no amateur karate bouts, no amateur kickboxing bouts, no amateur boxing bouts, no sumo, nothing. Just pro wrestling, which is, entertainment. So he's some sort of an athlete. He looks like he's in good shape. Done a little jiu-jitsu training. I mean, I don't know how much. He wears a white belt. I mean, that ain't good.
Nope.
And he's getting in there. He's going to fight in the UFC. And a lot of people have issues with it. I mean, John Jones said he hopes he gets knocked out. And I mean, there's a lot of people that find Ben Askren pissed as all hell, with a good right to be.
And he's going to be coaching him now. Yeah, absolutely a good right to be. Yeah.
I mean, Ben, they were saying Ben Askren doesn't have enough experience. Then the UFC hires a 0-0 guy to fight in the fucking UFC. And against who, though? Another guy that they're going to handpick for that 0-0 guy who also doesn't belong in the UFC, which is going to be really fascinating. I mean, how do they make a compelling match for CM Punk?
I think him by himself is that compelling. He is such a draw, and that people want to see him come out of character, who this real guy is, and they want, hey, is he, in the WWE, he was a straight edge guy who was, he had, iron balls and blah, 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 blah. Is he really that way? Yeah. Does he show up in the octagon? Is he scared? Is he afraid to throw a punch? Does he, leaning back with his chin held high? Does he get demolished, or does he fight hard?
Imagine if he tests positive for fucking PEDs.
Twitter would absolutely just break.
It would be hilarious. It would be Cosby-esque.
It would. And he's an extremely intelligent guy.
Yeah, he's very
when
smart.
You talk to me, very bright guy, and he's on this journey, and you can't fault him. He just said, I wanted to fight.
No.
You can't fault him that organizations go and sign him. And I get, where they're going with it as well. But the good thing for him, and when I spoke to him actually, this past weekend, there's no timeline for him. He can go train as long as he wants to train, and when his coach, when Duke says he's ready, that's when they get to match him up. What I want to know is, at what point do they start getting impatient, tapping their toes, saying, hey, look, it's been 8 months. Are you ready to fight yet or not?
Right. With the UFC. What point that's a very good point. Yeah, as long as he does that, that's a smart thing to do. I've always said that if Brock Lesnar did that, he would have been one of the greatest champions of all time. If Brock Lesnar went to a Matt Hume or a Faraz Sahabi type dude and had someone just analyze his physical movements and everything, you're going to do everything half speed for fucking months.
Yeah.
When I throw a kick, I want your knee to come up and I want you to check it. When you throw a left hook, I want a right leg kick just to be coming out on instinct. When someone throws a punch, I want you instantly to roll with it. I want it to be a part of your anatomy. I want to be a part of your DNA.
Drillers are killers.
And it never became that with that guy. He was just this fucking brute force super athlete. It was like someone giving you a Corvette ZR1 but never teaching you how to drive. Yeah. And you get on the fucking highway and you got a few moves. You know how to turn left and you know how to turn right. And for most cars, it's going to be enough to beat them. But then you get this Cain Velasquez car that knows how to do everything. And you're like, fuck.
Dude, that's an evil car.
That's an evil car.
That's a scary car.
After John beat Daniel Cormier, and then he said he would fight Cain in a heartbeat, boy, did I get excited about that fight. I'm excited about that fight as much as I'm excited about a Gustafsson rematch or a Rumble Johnson fight. Almost depends on what happens in the Gustafsson Rumble Johnson fight. If Gustafsson knocks out Rumble Johnson, or if Rumble Johnson knocks out Gustafsson, if one of those guys finishes the other guy in a very definitive way, then I want to see that fight.
Yeah.
But until that, John versus Cain would be fucking crazy too.
How long? Cain's been out over a year. Mm-hmm. How does he? We expect, because he was so dominant, that he comes back true to form. But you got to wonder, does he? He's had a lot of injuries, and certainly, Verdum, he gets overlooked time and time again. I certainly did when he fought Travis Brown. I thought Travis Brown was going to have a lot more success. Man, Verdum, he made him look mediocre.
How about that double jab? Where the fuck did he develop that fucking Lennox Lewis style double jab?
Yeah.
He looked great standing up. his stand-up has improved in a really dramatic fashion. Knocking out Mark Hunt with a fucking flying knee. Like, what?
Rafael Cordero got a lot of love from the past guys he's trained, but honestly, some of his best work has been recently. Yeah. What he's done with Verdum, what he's done with Rafael Dos Anjos. Yeah. He's starting to bring up, son of a gun, I'm missing... Dariush, Beneil Dariush as well, who's undefeated in the UFC so far, has had some very good fights, who's a black belt. He's a grappler that now is turned striker and being successful. He's starting to produce guys that shouldn't be good strikers and really showing some depth in the technique too. Not the crazy shootbox style people were accustomed to,
right,
but a lot of traps, trickery, setup, very technical, lots of volume striking with a lot of depth to it, different looks, different styles.
And Cordero, you can't get a nicer guy. And that's the other thing, is that these fighters have this bond with him because he's such a lovable guy. He's so great. They want to win for him.
Yeah.
A lot like the Ray Longo thing. Like they love Ray Longo. They want that guy there for them. They want to make that guy happy. And Rafael is just such a nice guy. He's such a nice guy. And, was a great fighter himself.
Yep.
Really understands. And really becoming a part of, or because he's a part of Shoot to Box, the history of MMA, he's legacy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Where that comes from. Imagine calling a fight and having Ray Longo come in for a fight and grab a headset.
Yeah. I think Ray Longo and Matt Serra should have their own fucking reality show.
I agree.
Just those two guys cornering fighters.
It would be absolutely incredible.
Absolutely. They're hilarious.
Oh.
And they're like my favorite kind of East Coast guys. You know,
Yeah.
that East Coast sense of humor.
Humble, self-deprecating.
Yeah.
I mean, they're great human. I mean, I spent a week in Fort Hood with Matt Serra during one of the Fight for the Troops. I mean, you couldn't find a funnier guy. I mean, the whole time Dana's texting him, telling him how fat he is. And then we go to who's the big puppet guy in Vegas? Terry Fader.
Yeah.
Dana gets his front row tickets to this Terry Fader show. And so Sarah's texting Dana, look, I may have put on some weight, but I sure as hell didn't ask for tickets to a puppet show, Dana. You know, I'm 30-some years old. I could have passed on. I could have seen this by staying home with my kids. Thanks for nothing, you know.
That's funny. He's fucking hilarious. They're funny guys, man. That East Coast mentality. That there's just a different sort of sense of humor that comes out of Long Island. This fucking guy over here. Yeah. Jesus Christ.